Hi, welcome to lessonswithtroy.com. I'm Troy Brenningmeyer. Well, in this week's lesson, we're back to the dobro in open G tuning, GBDGBD tuning. But if you have a lap steel and you have that tuned to open G, this can sound great on lap steel as well. This lesson I'm calling Blues Improv 101. And there's going to be two parts to it, two separate lessons. And in this part, this will be part A, I'm going over my diagrams. And as you can see here, these are this is one of my diagrams that's included in this lesson. So in this lesson, I'll explain what all these diagrams mean. So let's go ahead and do that now. First off, like I said, we're in open G tuning, GBD tuning, and all these diagrams, I think I have 4 in this lesson, they're all going to be real similar. There's going to be 3 shapes to whatever scale patterns we're learning. And all the scale patterns are also related, which means they'll be kind of built off of this basic minor pentatonic scale shape. So here's our shapes, the scale shapes here, and I'll explain kind of how to read this in just a second. And then in each diagram, you'll have a diagram of the neck of your instrument in the key of C. Now, I always suggest, and this is how I learn the neck of the instrument too, to think of the neck in the key of C because there's no sharps or flats in the key of C. So it's it's all natural notes. Okay, so I didn't write in the sharps or flats specifically to keep it simple, to simplify the neck. Otherwise, the neck just gets too cluttered, I feel like, and you really don't see it clearly. So let's start off this lesson by me explaining this part up here, the neck of your instrument. Like I said, dobro or lap steel, tuned to open G tuning, GBD tuning. Okay, first off, let's talk about the tuning and why I have some notes in red and why I have some notes in blue. Okay, so down here, just like in tablature, is your 6th string, your G string, GBD. That's 6th, 5th, 4th. This is your lowest, your thickest string. Okay, then up here, starting on your 3rd string, that's GBD. Well, what I've done, notice strings 6, 5, and 4 are all in blue. All those notes are in blue. And then strings 3, 2, and 1 are in red. That's simply because it's going to be the same shapes, right? It's just an octave higher. So the dobro is great like that, and this tuning is great like that because you learn one set of 3 strings, and you can apply that to your other set of 3 strings. So it's really good to simplify things as much as what you can. So that's why they're colored differently. So you can immediately start seeing patterns on these 3 strings, and they will apply to these 3 strings as well. Okay, so your frets are going up and down, and they're numbered here, 0 to 12. So going down, that 0 means open. Okay, that's not pushing down with your bar. And then 1 is your 1st fret. Okay, and it keeps going. Now, I ended at my 12th fret because 0 to 12 is going to be the same shapes and same fret spacing as 12 to 24, so up higher on your instrument. But if you just keep it simple and you learn just from open to your 12th fret, you can just apply all those same patterns from 12 to 24. Okay, and real simple. If you don't know anything about sharps and flats and what all that means, it's very, very simple. A sharp is going to move the note up 1 fret this way. Notice the arrow, 1 note to the right basically on this diagram. And a flat is going to move the note 1 fret the opposite way to the left on this diagram, or it's going to lower the note. A sharp raises the note 1 fret. A flat lowers the note 1 fret. So let's look here. For example, here's F on my 3rd fret, 1st string. And if we wanted an F sharp, we just move it up to the 4th fret. That would be an F sharp. Okay. If we wanted a G flat, we move G back 1 fret. That's G flat. So notice how much simpler the neck is without, thinking of sharps and flats. You can always put that in later, and I don't think it's necessary to to think about that right offhand. Okay, so we've got that. So this is with no sharps or flats. That's the key of C. Okay, now if we go down here, this is going to be the name of the shapes that we're working with, or the scale shapes. These shapes are the minor pentatonic shapes. Now I only have 3 shapes. Okay, I'm trying to keep it real simple. Shape 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now notice how on each shape, over here to the left, it's open, right? I don't have a vertical line there. So each shape kind of has that. But on the right side, it's closed off. Okay? Now that's real important, because what you can do is you can connect these shapes just by moving, let's say shape 2 in your mind, think moving that right to where this part here connects right to this part of shape 1. It kind of butts up to the end of it. Same thing for shape 3. Shape 3 goes right to the end of shape 2 there. Okay, and then shape 1, then you can take that shape and move it all the way to the end of shape 3 to where the pattern repeats. Okay, so the way that these shapes work is it's just like here, where this is your 6th string, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st string. And the dots are going to be what you would be playing on that specific string. Now, the numbers, that's where it gets a little bit confusing or a little bit more complicated. Instead of me just putting, red dots, I decided to put what's called the interval of the scale interval down for each dot. So what this means then, R means root. That's the root of the scale. So for example, if we're wanting to play an A minor pentatonic, the R's would be A's. They would be A notes. Okay, notice how it's on 6th string and 3rd string. So that would be right here. Notice on your 2nd fret, 6th string and 3rd string, those are A notes. Okay, so the root note, that's why it's in blue. It's really important for moving these shapes around to different keys. Okay, because all you have to do then is, in your mind, think of this shape moving up here and fitting right here from open to your 2nd fret. Okay, just overlaying this shape in this position of your instrument. Okay, the same fret spacing that you have for each dot and all that would be put right here. Okay, now A minor is a great key to work with, and that's what I'm going to suggest you learn first when you're learning these, because A minor, this kind of gets into some theory, but A minor is what's called the relative minor to the key of C major. So it shares all the same notes as C major. Each major key has its own relative minor, and it's built off the 6th scale degree of that key. So not getting into a lot of other keys right now, but just let's focus on the key of C. The key of C relative minor is A minor. So we're going to work with the A minor pentatonic scale in my samples that I'm going to be talking about in this lesson. Okay, so let's think about that. So the way that a minor pentatonic scale works is it has these certain scale intervals. Root, let's start down here. Root, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7th, and root. Now, what do all those numbers mean? Well, to get into some music theory, basically if you take a major scale and you adjust it, like you take, let's say the key of, let's take the key of C, for example, and we wanted root. There would be a root. We'd want a flat 3rd. Okay, if we think, let's go up here, and we're just going to follow this up on this string, C, D, E. Okay, E would be our third. But remember how I said this is the key of C major? Okay, if you want this kind of shape, or these notes, let's say root, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat seventh, and root, you take C, and you don't play an E, but you play an E flat. Okay, C, D, E. That's root, second, third, and then if you want a flat third, you move it back 1 fret. And that goes for the same for all these intervals in that particular scale. Okay, I could go through and say you wanted a flat 7. Okay, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. B is what's called a major 7th, and if you want a flat 7, you move that B back 1 fret. Okay, so it gets a little complicated when you start thinking of all these different key signatures and this and that, memorizing them all. You know, what I want to do is show you these shapes so that all you have to do is match up your root to whatever key you want to play in, overlay the shape on here, and then what you can start doing is just thinking, well, I'm playing this shape, you know, I'm in the key of, let's say, A minor. That'll be our example key. And that would be, we would start here, because I think it's good to start with the highest note and then to go down, especially on lap style dobro, because it's kind of easier to go down the scale than up the scale. So we start with the 5th of our scale. That would be the note E. We move to the 4th of our scale. That's D. A flat 3rd. That would be C. Can you see the shape? Overlaying shape 1 right here. Okay, flat 3rd C. And then we're back to root A right here. And then go down 2 frets. G. And that's my flat 7. Okay, notice the shape, for these 3 strings, it's going to be the same shape as these 3 strings. Now this one I always call the X shape. Shape 1 is called the X shape. And you can see that if you connected the dots, it forms kind of an X shape there. But these are going to be the notes that you would be playing, the intervals of that scale that you would be actually playing. The 5th of your scale, the 4th, the flat 3rd of a scale, root, and flat 7. So it's good to start, you know, getting this stuff memorized and also trying to hear it as you're playing it. Okay, so moving on to shape 2 now. Notice where the root note is. It's kind of a longer shape. Okay, now if we wanted to play this one in the key of A, an A minor pentatonic scale, we can start here on our 7th fret. And we're going to overlay this whole shape 2 right in this area of our neck. Okay, A, G, that's root to flat 7. Okay, then we go straight down for the E, the 5th of our scale, and then D, the 4th, and then C, flat 3rd, and then we can keep going from there. Okay, but hopefully you're seeing that how this shape overlays right here. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, what about F? And what about these notes that I'm not using over top of this, right? Remember, this is the key of C written, right? C to C, no sharps or flats. And our sample key for these that we'll be working with is A minor. Well, an A minor pentatonic has the notes A, right? If we look at this shape, A, C is our flat 3rd, D is our 4, E is the 5th, G would be our flat 7th, and then A. It's a pentatonic scale, penta meaning 5. Normally in a scale you have 7 notes, 8 counting the octave. So in a pentatonic scale we're removing 2 of the notes. So the notes that we'd be removing then to give us a pentatonic scale is the second, which would be B, and I think it's the sixth. So we remove the second and the sixth of our scale, or you could think of it ninth and sixth, second and sixth. The B note and the F note. So as we start overlaying these shapes in the key of A minor, because they can really overlay great, in the key of C major, just picture removing the notes B and F, and it'll probably start making a lot more sense to you. So when we take shape 2 here and we overlay it here, just kind of ignore the F's and the B's and play A, G, E, D, C, and then you can keep going A down here. So like I said before, it's good to start going from right to left and down. So we would start with the root note. We'd go to flat 7. Notice how we move a whole step there. We go straight down for fifth, for the fifth of the scale. Go over 2 frets for 4. Now we're going down to our flat third, and then down another string to another root. And notice the shape of these 3 strings, strings 1, 2, and 3, is the exact same shape as strings 4, 5, and 6. You see that? With all these shapes, it's like that. Shape 1, strings 1, 2, and 3, it's the same shape as 4, 5, and 6. Okay, in shape 3, same thing. So shape 3 is a little bit different. You have to lock in these roots on your 5th and 2nd string. If we're in the key of A, notice how that would be on our 10th fret. 10th fret 5th string, 10th fret 2nd string. So just take this whole shape, overlay it to where that would be your root notes. Remember, we're thinking about the key of A minor pentatonic scale, because it's the relative minor to the key of C. Okay. A lot of music theory here, but I'll just keep kind of saying it. But it's really important for you to understand where these root notes are and to be able to overlay these shapes where they match up on the neck of your instrument up here. Okay, keeping in mind, if you want an A minor pentatonic scale, just don't worry about the B notes, B as in boy, and the F notes. Okay, that'll make these shapes, I hope, jump out to you a little bit more. Okay, now, all these other shapes that I have, or diagrams that I have, it's basically going to add notes to this minor pentatonic scale to give you different sounds. And that's what you do when you're improvising. A lot of times you don't always just play out of this, minor pentatonic scale. You might add some passing notes and this and that. And I tried to simplify that as much as what I could. So let me open up the blues scale shape and notice how in the blues scale, it's just like the minor pentatonic scale, but I add the flatted fifth there. And we'll get into this a little bit later. When I go over each pattern in a little bit more detail. So let's take a break right now, and I'll get my dobro out, and I'll show you how these sound. Let's do that now.